The weekend of the Brazilian GP was the most chaotic weekend of the season. Until the sprint race, things were going smoothly and as scheduled. But as soon as it was time for qualifying, things took an unexpected turn. After the qualifying session, Max Verstappen went on to criticize the FIA of how they handled certain situations on track. Originally, the qualifying session was scheduled to take place on Saturday afternoon. But the FIA were forced to postpone the session to Sunday morning after the weather made it very unsafe for cars to go out on the track. On Sunday morning, the FIA was able to find a time to host the qualifying session. Although it was still raining, it was drivable conditions. Throughout the session, there were cars locking up and spinning. In Q2, both the Red Bulls had to put in their initial flying laps but were interrupted by a red flag, caused by Carlos Sainz, who spun and put his Ferrari in the wall. Q2 was set to resume after the red flag with just 5 minutes left on the clock. This gave the drivers one, maybe two flying laps before the session came to an end. As Red Bull are at the start of the pit lane, they're usually one of the last cars to go out on track. With just over a minute remaining on the clock, most of the grid had already completed their flying laps while the Red Bulls had just started theirs. This is when a yellow flag was thrown, forcing both Verstappen and Perez to slow down. About 40 seconds later, a red flag was thrown, bringing the session to an early end. As it turned out, Lance Stroll had put his Aston Martin in the wall, and there was debris all over turn 3. But this 40-second delay in waving the red flag gave some of the drivers time to complete their flying laps, including Red Bull's main rivals, McLaren. As Max and Checo had not completed their flying lap, they were knocked out of Q1, as their initial lap times were not fast enough for the top 10. After getting out of his car, Verstappen went straight to the media pen and took a shot at the FIA. "I find it unbelievable," he said. "The car goes into the wall, broken, clearly destroyed, but they wait 30-40 seconds for the red flag. So everyone else can just complete their laps, and the ones behind cannot even do a lap. I can't get my head around. How is it possible to just let it go for 30-40 seconds? We're already limited with the pits because we're on the back. So when you do the restart, you have to wait until you go out. So we're always in the back. It really blows my mind." The entire Red Bull garage had to face disappointment on Sunday morning. With both cars out in Q2 and Max with a further 5-place grid penalty for taking on a new internal combustion engine, Red Bull had an uphill battle for the race while McLaren was starting on pole. The worst part about this was the fact that Red Bull had a very quick car throughout the weekend. They showcased their pace during the sprint race and in Q1 where Max went fastest. There's no doubt that Verstappen would have been in contention for pole position if he had not been knocked out in Q2. Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner was also appalled by FIA's late red flag in Q2. "It's hugely frustrating, a session like that with a lot going on. It was a huge accident in one of the most dangerous corners, and it took 40 seconds for the red flag to come out. It should be an immediate red flag, and I know Crofty was endorsing the completion of the laps. The problem is, we didn't get the first lap for Max because of Ocon. It's compromised from there. We want to understand why it took so long for the race director to bring out the red flag." Yes, there are times when the FIA delays bringing out the red flag in the spirit of competition, but this was unfair to Red Bull. Since the yellow flag was thrown in Sector 1 just as the Red Bulls were crossing it, they were anyway forced to slow down. So even if the red flag had waited for Max and Checo to pass the line, it would not have been fair. So in the spirit of competition, the FIA should have thrown the red flag as soon as the incident happened, to keep it fair for all competitors. Besides, there was debris on the track, making it dangerous for the drivers. This was not the FIA's only controversial decision in recent times. Last week in Mexico, the FIA gave Verstappen a 20-second penalty for pushing Lando off the track. Many felt that this penalty was too harsh. Lando's race was not completely compromised as there was no damage to his car, and he was still close to Max after the incident. But despite the penalty, the Dutch driver still ended up finishing P6. Even in Brazil, Max Verstappen refused to give up without a fight. In the race, the Dutch driver made some impressive overtakes and was able to find himself in contention for a podium finish. And then a red flag placed him P2 for the restart, after which he went on to win the race. The 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix was perhaps Max Verstappen's best race since the start of the 2022 season. With this result, he has more or less secured his championship title, as Norris is now 62 points behind. If Verstappen is leading the championship by more than 60 points after the Las Vegas Grand Prix, he will have clinched the 2024 driver's title, making it his 4th consecutive championship. Do you think the FIA's decision to delay the red flag in the spirit of competition was fair at Brazil? Post your thoughts in the comment section below.